this video, I'll be giving a few announcements and explaining what content we'll be covering in week 6 of the course. Let's start with those announcements. The big one for this week is that Quiz 2 is now available, and it's going to work just like Quiz 1. You'll have till the end of the week, Friday, June 17th at 11:55 p.m. to start the quiz. Once you start the quiz, you'll have 1 hour to complete it. And just like Quiz 1, you'll be able to retake this quiz once during the week, and the highest grade will be counted. But keep in mind that you have to reattempt it before June 17th at 11:55 p.m., so don't leave it to the last minute. Quiz 2 is going to cover databases, hardware, software, and ERDs. It will not cover anything from the current week, so that means it's not going to cover Microsoft Access. So it will be important that you watch that hardware and software video from last week if you've not done so already, as that is going to be on the quiz. The format will be similar to the last quiz, but it may also include some fill-in-the-blank style questions. About 40% of the quiz content by point value will be on ERDs, 40% on hardware and software, and 20% on databases. It will be important to manage your time well for this one, as the number of questions is the same, but the questions might take a little bit more thought and a little bit longer to work out, as they will be covering things like ERDs. So make sure you don't spend too much time on any one question. And once again, you can find the quizzes on the Tests and Quizzes tab on our OWL course site. The other announcement is that Assignment 3 is now available on OWL, under the Assignments tab. This assignment will involve you taking your ERD from Assignment 2 and turning it into a Microsoft Access database. As this will require your solution to Assignment 2 to be correct, the first step of Assignment 3 will be correcting your ERD based on a solution to Assignment 2 that is shown in the Assignment 3 document. And you can find that again in the Assignments tab. You should also get your Assignment 2 grades back and feedback on about Monday next week to help with this, but if you want to get a head start right now, do use that solution in the Assignment 3 document to get started. I should also once again remind you that you need Windows to run Microsoft Access. If you're using macOS, you must find a way to run Access, such as using MyVLab to connect to a remote Windows computer, or if you're here in London, you can use a GenLab here on campus. They should all have Microsoft Access installed. Should warn you, however, that if you're using MyVLab, you need to have a good understanding of where your Access file is being stored. That's important because you're going to have to be able to get that file back to your home computer when you want to upload it to OWL. The other issue is that in some rare cases, when you're saving a Microsoft Access database to MyVLab and you lose your connection, it can corrupt that file. So if you are using MyVLab, make sure you are regularly backing up your Access file, because I don't want to see you losing it. And that's also why MyVLab should be a solution of last resort, only if you have no other way to use a Windows computer in person. And if you're a Windows user, you don't have to worry about any of that, just run Access on your Windows computer. It's free for all Western students, so if you haven't already installed it, make sure you do that now. Now onto the content for this week. This week we'll be covering Microsoft Access and how to turn an ERD into a real database. There's a short reading from your text, Knowledge Extension 7, which briefly introduces Microsoft Access and forms. Note, however, that it also does go into reports and queries, but we won't be covering those until a future week. But go ahead and read them now if you'd like. So we're starting this week by reading Knowledge Extension 7. After reading Knowledge Extension 7, the next step is following along with the going from an ERD to a database tutorial. The links to all these videos are going to be on OWL as always, and I recommend having Access open while you watch this tutorial, and following along with each step and replicating it on your own computer. This will teach you both how to translate an ERD into a real database, as well as how to use Microsoft Access. After that, you have a choice. I have a second optional Microsoft Access tutorial you can follow along with that shows a different example. This optional tutorial also shows you how to use Access in window mode, which is not something you'll be tested on, but it might make your life easier for the assignments. So I highly recommend watching this if you're struggling with the first tutorial, and seeing everything again, how we do it, but with a new example, might make things a little bit more clearer. So if you want more experience with Access, you can watch that tutorial, but it is optional. There won't be any new content in there that you'd be tested. Regardless of if you watch the optional tutorial, the next step is to watch the Access Forms tutorial, and this is an important one. This will teach you how to create a simple database application, a graphical user interface for editing and entering data called a form. Don't worry if that sounds intimidating. Microsoft Access allows us to do this without any programming knowledge, and it's mostly just point and click. The last step is going to be trying out that MyLab homework. And once again, that MyLab homework is optional, but highly recommended. And all the questions I recommend are listed on OWL, and this will give us more experience with Microsoft Access. Once you've tried that, and you have any questions about the content this week, I do encourage you to post on the forums, as always, and then start working on Assignment 3. And that brings us to our participation activity for the week. So this one might sound a bit intimidating at first, but it's actually quite fun and starts getting into the art side of software design. So before you do try this activity though, make sure you've watched the Access Forms video tutorial, as that will make everything I'm about to talk about a little bit more clear. So what we will be doing is creating a wireframe or mock-up of a form application for the employee entity from our ERD in Assignment 2. That would be this guy here. So what's a wireframe? It's a drawing of a user interface of a software application, website, or mobile application. The idea is that before you start creating your application, you want to plan out where you want to put each component, each input, each button, and so on, so you have an idea of what your application is going to look like before you even get started. This helps evaluate and plan out your user interface before you even start coding it or designing it. So the application we want to make a wireframe for, in this case, is a simple form application that will allow a user to edit our business's employee records or create new ones. Remember, the idea here is not to create a real Access form application, but rather we just want to plan out what it would look like with a drawing. So you can draw this on paper or use software to draw it, but it should not be a real Microsoft Access form. The wireframe should show the inputs for every attribute in the employee entity, but it should also be customized for the needs of your business. For example, you should add your company name, logo, and other details related to your company. This should include 2 new attributes that are specific to things you want to track about your employees in particular. So one of these new attributes should be something that you can select with a combo box in your application. So that's sort of like a drop-down box. And the second new attribute should be something that you can select using a checkbox or a radio button. Checkboxes are those little square buttons that have a check in them, where you can check multiple of them. And the radio buttons are the little circle boxes that you can only pick one of them. You can see that more if you watch the Access form tutorial. So once you've finished your wireframe, take a picture of it or scan it or however you want to get an image of it and post it as an attachment to the Week 6 employee form wireframe topic on the course forums. This will allow us to have like a nice little gallery of the different ways we designed a similar user interface, sort of like an art gallery for UI that we've made as a class. So now I realize that sounds a bit intimidating, so let's look at an example. Here we have part of the ERD from Assignment 2. So the key here is the employee entity. We want to make a drawing of what the application would look like that allows us to input all of this data. Note that the 2 attributes here at the bottom are just placeholders for something else you want to track about your employees. This is just this part of activity and wasn't something from Assignment 2. So our goal here is to create something that looks like this, and it can be drawn by hand. And that would be a drawing of what the form might look like. Once again, I want to make it crystal clear that you don't have to make this as an actual application or an actual Microsoft Access form, just a drawing of it. So it should include inputs for each attribute and show some example data. Here we can see I have inputs for first name, last name, SIN, phone number, and so on, with some example data shown in each of them. Every attribute from your employee entity should have an input of some kind in your drawing. We also have 2 extra attributes added just for this activity, and remember that one needs to be shown as a combo box, and the other as either a checkbox or a radio button. In this example, I have employee's degree as the combo box, and certificates as a checkbox. Your extra attributes, however, should be something that you specifically want to track about your employees for your specific business, all the way back from Assignment 1. And they should make sense for your business. So that don't pick what I have, pick something for your business. You can also add more features to this form, even if you don't yet know how to implement them in Access. For example, here we have a search input to look up employees. And these checkboxes, we might not yet know how to deal with those yet. But that's completely fine, as this is just a drawing right now, and we just want to show what our ideal form would look like. We want to just focus on the user interface. It doesn't necessarily have to be one that we know how to create yet in Access. So all you need to submit to the OWL forms is a scan or a photo of your drawing. So if you're hand drawing it, you can take a photo with your phone, or you could scan it, or if you're creating it in some kind of graphics program, you just upload the image. And a key thing to keep in mind here is that your fields don't necessarily have to be in the same location or in the same order as mine. I just quickly threw this together as an example. You should take some time and think about what the best layout would be when you're entering data and what makes sense for your company. So I hope you won't have them exactly looking like this because I didn't put much thought into it. So you should think of like where you want the first name, the last name, and sort of what the flow would be as you're filling this form out, what would work best. So as with other participation activities, this is not going to be marked on correctness, but the effort you put into it. So have some fun with it, and don't worry about how you would actually make this an access at this point. Rather think about what would be the most usable layout, what is the most aesthetically pleasing UI that you could give for your users. That's all I have for you in this video. Make sure you get started on reading Knowledge Extension 7 and watching those tutorial videos. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.